Hello. Let's talk about writing a series. My name is John Stanton, and I'm an independent writer. Been doing this for 10 years or so, and been writing for a lot longer, but actually published my first book in 2012. I want to show you a little bit about my writing history and how series have affected sales in that 10 years. I first just want to walk you through a little bit of explanation on each of the standalone books before we hit the series. So, my first book was in 2012. It was magical realism and written in a literary style, coming of age. Very few readers to this day. My second book was in 2013. It was more of a commercial appeal. It had the dark historical fantasy and some more actiony kinds of things compared to the first book in the magical realism. So I think this appealed to a broader audience. My third novel was a historical fiction coming of age with a little twist in there, lots of research, and it was set in my hometown. So it had an appeal for me personally, and it did okay. Then around 2020, as I'm listening to a lot of the author podcasts, I'm hearing the advice about writing in a series from all sorts of genre perspectives, from romance to fantasy and science fiction, that people were having success by developing series and getting what they called read through, which is one reader reading one book, going on to your next book and next book and next book. And I thought, that's really interesting. I would like to generate more readers, get more book sales. And that was a strategy that appealed to me. So I thought, let's try it. So in 2021, I released my first book in a humorous, cozy mystery series set in Minnesota. And I landed on this approach in this world, if you will, because I am from Minnesota. So I wanted it to be something in Minnesota, and I wanted it to be something that I would enjoy writing. I wanted it to be funny because I have a wicked sense of humor. And I wanted it to be something that I could live in for a few years because this is going to take a little time to check this strategy out. Book 2, I feel, is even better than book 1 in this series. I was really getting the hang of writing within a series. So that in and of itself takes a little practice. It's more than just writing a book. Now you need to open up some potential pathways for your story to unfold across books. You have to think a little bit ahead about how you want your character arcs to flow. But I just recently released book 3, which this makes it feel like I actually have a series, and this one went very smoothly in terms of the writing. It's the more I'm writing in a series, it seems the easier the books are getting to write. So it's early days as we look at some of the data here for this particular book, but it's all adding up. So to summarize, I've written 6 books in the past 10 years, and 3 of those have been in the last year in my series. So let me give you a peek behind the curtains at some of the data that I have. But first, just to point out that I'm only looking at Amazon sales here. I have not gone wide through other distribution models yet. Secondly, I don't have any audiobooks produced. That's a whole separate project and expense, or project for sure. And this data will not include my sales at brick and mortar bookstores like Sweet Reads in Austin, or the Homestead Boutique in Albert Lea, or Buffalo Books in Buffalo, Minnesota. This is strictly online through Amazon. Long story short, the series strategy is working. I am just a small fish when it comes to revenue generated by book sales at this point. So I'm not trying to claim here to be rich from writing or anything like that, but just we're looking at trends, because if the trend continues, the more income I'm going to make. And you can see I've dropped on this timeline sort of the visuals of when I launched those books in my history here, starting with the left being in 2012, all the way to the right here in 2022. And you can see on my paid units, this does not include any free promotion units, definitely moving on up, as the Jeffersons said. And I'm also using pre-orders in Amazon. So I have book 4 in the series waiting in the wings to be launched in November of 2022. My hunch is that readers who are interested in reading series in general really like to see some books out in the series. So it's not just like you put out one book, call it a series, and then hope a lot of readers are going to jump into it and get hooked. Because they're going to want to see, like, okay, there's 3 books, there's 10 books, whatever it is. So I know that I am committing to a relationship here with the writer and the characters. So I think it's wise to use the pre-orders to help show your you're bolstering your future content, and it's coming for those anxious readers. So, of those paid units in the previous chart, the print books are, they're doing okay. But I'm seeing a decline in print sales overall as people use more digital formats like ebooks and the Kindle Unlimited subscription model or audiobooks. Print books yield the highest royalties, so I would rather see print sales go up and up. But as you can see, ebooks are a thing, and here I've just seen tremendous growth in ebook paid units since the launch of the series. But then along comes Kindle Unlimited, a subscription model where people pay a monthly fee and then they have access to all the books they care to read. And this obviously is a newer program, but I can see already that is where most of the activity on my account is coming from. It's not a lot of money. This is not a big revenue generator unless this scales up. So I need about 3,000 times more of these readers to make this lucrative. But it's definitely, as you can see, trending upward. So based on that quick data peek, I did come up with some quick knee-jerk conclusions, which is, yes, read-through is real. People are reading from book 1 to book 2 to book 3, etc. But also expanding into my other books that they wouldn't have tried because they say, oh, this is kind of interesting. It's kind of up my alley. What else does this guy do? So you're getting some not only series loyalty, but also some interest in the author. I'd say the series is going to be the big generator, like within the series world from book 1 to book 2. That kind of read through is going to be the strongest, but then there's the occasional overlap where like, let's try this weird other book instead. And then obviously Kindle Unlimited, the subscription model from Amazon is up and coming. It's a real thing. The print books are in decline. I personally only read print books unless I'm in a pinch, but I love print books, and that makes me a little sad. Not the least of which is because that's the highest rate of royalty for writers. Now, if you asked me, should you write a series, I would ask you a few questions. I mean, if you want, do you want to increase your supplemental income exponentially in the long run? Then yes, I think series are proving to be more lucrative than standalone novels. That's not to say you couldn't write some breakout standalone book, but the odds of that happening are slim. Maybe you have a complex story in mind. Do you? If you do, and you can't cram it all in one book, consider breaking it into a series. Maybe all of a sudden you've got 3 books, 4 books that you can stretch your story across. And I think it's important still to find sort of these standalone stories within each novel. But then there's a continuing arc that goes across books, continuing character development that goes across books. And finally, your mindset isn't just to put one book out and expect great success. You are thinking in the long term. You know that it's going to take multiple books. And even if you're not writing in a series, you're writing multiple books, that's great. You still need to think in the long term. Get past the one and done, my first book is going to make it and I'm going to be a millionaire kind of mindset, because that's just not how it works. My final thoughts are that if you're a first-time writer, you're still working on your first book maybe, just get it done. Write that book. Just do it. Don't stop. Don't look backwards. Shut off the internal editor. and write it, get it done. It's going to suck. It's going to be hard and you're going to hate it. But just do it because that is how you're going to get better. You don't wake up one morning and decide to run a marathon and run a marathon. You go out and you run a half mile and then you run a mile. Same with writing. You need to just get that first book done. You'll either fix it or you won't. Now, secondly, if you are thinking about the series, sketch it out a little bit. Just play around with it. You don't have to write it completely. Just throw out some ideas like, hey, if this happened in a book, what does that kind of look like? How does that lead into a second book? What are these characters? What are their change arcs looking like so that when they start this series, they're one way. What do they become by the end of this series? What's my ending scene, if you will, of this series? With that last moment at the end of the series, right, where everyone's already hooked and they're watching at the very bitter end and there's tears in their eyes. What are they going to see at that moment, that concluding thing? It happens in book 5 or book 6. Don't invest too much money in your books. You can overspend and you won't see a return, trust me. So, especially on your first book, spend as little as possible on your book. Rely on friends and relatives for proofreading, that kind of thing, if you can. Because it's just not going to pay back. And the most valuable thing about your early writing experience isn't the final product, it's the process of writing. So just be careful with your money. You can always fix things later in your book. And if you are going to spend money, you have a budget, right? Just use it strategically. Don't pay for the wrong thing. If your story sucks, but you have a beautiful cover that draws people in, or you paid for a beautiful book description and people read it and they hate it, and you elicit a bunch of 1-star reviews, you've just shot yourself in the foot with your beautiful cover and your beautiful description. So be careful how you spend it. Don't pay for proofreading when what you need is a developmental editor, right? Like if your story is all over the road, nothing's happening in the first half of the book, and then you hire a proofreader to go through and fix your typos, that doesn't matter. Your story still drags. You need a developmental editor. So know how to spend your money. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to me at info@chance.biz. I'd be happy to have a quick introductory call with you or email chat so that we can just figure out what your best spend is. Maybe I can help you out there for free. But most importantly, get your books done. Release that idea of perfection. It's not beneficial. It's not your friend. There is no such thing as perfection. Just try your best. Keep writing. Get better at writing. It'll happen. You just need to keep doing it and get it done. Don't be afraid. Be strong. Be courageous. You're a writer. You can do it. So that's my take on writing in a series. It's working for me. What do you think? Would it be something that you would consider trying yourself? Let me know. info@chance.biz.